So we're very excited to have you here tonight. I'd like to thank all of you for joining, taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. My name is Tony Morgan. I'm a PGA golf professional, and I'm a managing partner of K-Vest. And it's really an exciting time in golf right now for the simple fact that technology is going to allow us to build remote-based coaching programs for our players. And this technology is going to really allow you to still do what you do best, measure and assess players, but then we can start to really leverage the technology to get players changing their movement patterns. And that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. And we want to always make sure that we focus on two things. Number one, we always improve player outcomes. I think anything that we're doing, whether it's cool technology, whatever it is, if it's not really player outcomes, we have to ask ourselves why we're using it. So that's definitely a very important focus of ours. Number two, we want to help you build better business models. So we're going to talk a little bit about how many golf coaches have a time dependency, and really their revenue is based on how many hours they spend teaching a day. Well, what we're launching right now was really going to help change some of that. So there's four primary things we're going to focus on tonight. One, we're going to talk about how to assess the player's data. There's obviously a lot of different ways you can do that with pressure plates and force plates. We can look at video cameras, 3D motion system, 6D. We can look at launch monitors, club data, ball data. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can assess to get the player moving in the right direction. Tonight we're going to use the K-Vest system, and then we're going to talk about how we built the program over into K-Player to get the student practicing. So once we've assessed that data, we're then going to build a biofeedback program. And the key thing that we're going to focus on with the biofeedback program is we need to make sure the biofeedback program is specific to the player. I think too many times today we're launching biofeedback programs that are built for tour players, and they're not built for our average golfers, meaning the ranges aren't right, the tolerances aren't right, the timers aren't right, so they're not firing out of these orientations or positions. So there's a lot of options there we want to make sure we spend some time on. Number three, we want to talk about how to export and send that program over to a player. So the great thing is now that the program's built, we can actually export that program, send it via the web, send it over to the K-Player software, student logs in, and they can do their training. So we're going to show you exactly how that process works so you can see it firsthand. Then we're going to talk about the business models to support this. If you see this tonight and you go, wow, I can see this actually working at my facility, great. So that's great that you have visibility to that. How do you make money doing this? And if we can keep players getting better and we can generate more revenue streams, we're all going to be in a great place. So as we go through some of this, there's a good chance you're going to develop some questions. And as we go, you'll see in the Go to Meeting box over on the right, you'll have a chat bar. So you can type in your questions as we go. If we're in a particular area, just feel free to go ahead and type that question right away. And what we'll do at the end of the presentation, we'll come back and we'll address your questions in the order in which they're received, and we'll get to, obviously, as many as we can. So one of the concepts that we want to focus on tonight is this concept of measure then act. I think today we live in an environment where there's just a lot of technology out there, and it's great. But I think the best coaches in the world and the best players in the world know how to use the technology and don't get over-ramped and overwhelmed with all the data. So if we think about the term measure then act, measure then act is an acronym for measure, assess, coach, and train. And so when we break these down into what we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to be using the K-Vest 7 to measure and assess. I've got a player here that I've worked with for about the last year, done a lot of biofeedback training, and we've made some good progress. And the reason I brought him in is he's done a lot of this stuff on his own, which has really been great. The second part of this is coach and train. So once we build a biofeedback program for him, coaching is all about getting him to change his patterns for the first time. So whether I'm in the gym and I'm working out with my trainer and I'm not in the right posture, he's giving me verbal cues that I need to do. This happens all the time. Or I'm giving a lesson and the right elbow is not in the right place, the hand pass off, or the posture's off. We're constantly giving our players cues. Well, now the technology is just getting to a place where it's a lot simpler to do this, and we're going to show you that tonight. So we want to measure and assess with KVS 7, customize the biofeedback program and coach. Then we're going to let the player actually go over. I'm going to show you a new corner of my office that we're just using, which is perfect because it's not a lot of space, and probably all of you have this type of area at your facility or on your range. I'm going to show you how we built an unsupervised practice station, and then we'll talk about the business behind it. So here in just a little bit, I'm going to be introducing you to Chris. Chris is one of my students. When he first came in, he was a 21 handicap. We've been working together probably a little bit less than a year, and in that time, he's down to about a 15. But the great thing is, we've only seen each other probably about 6 or 7 times. He's done a lot of this training on his own, and he's really made good progress in his full swing. I think we all know score's not always indicative of full swing, and that's mainly what we've worked on. But it was pretty cool to bring him back because he was really somebody that said, hey, I understand these concepts now. I just want to be able to practice, and I sometimes just want to be able to do this on my own. And so I think we all have players like that. So Chris's main thing is he didn't have really a problem with distance. Definitely didn't have any problems with ball speed, but he definitely had some problems with some dispersion. Driver mid-irons could go both directions, driver more to the right. Irons would typically club face would shut. We'd hit some shots to the left. And then when we started backing up, once again, that was an assessment that we did on TrackMan. Once we started backing up, we used the KVS for assessment. You may use video, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We used the KVS, and we found really some things that were contributing to this pattern. And Chris was in here earlier this morning, and I said, you know, where do you feel like you've come in the last year? And his comment was, and I'll let him speak about this later, his comment was, I just didn't know, but if my timing, I think we've all heard this, if my timing wasn't on, man, it was really hard to get the club face square at impact. Well, if you look at some of the orientations his body was in, it was almost impossible for them to fire in the right sequence, and also wasn't putting a lot of good pressure in his low back area. So I also want to make sure we hit it from that side. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go into the KVS software very quickly, and I want to just show you 3 things about what we saw in Chris's data, and then we're actually going to bring him in a few minutes here, and we'll actually show you how we built a biofeedback program. So I'm going to bring up the KVS software, as you can see here on your screen, and I'm going to go into the performance graphs. Now, I know all of you don't have KVS or you haven't used motion capture, so I want to make this very simple and almost tell a little story with this because I'm sure we've all seen this pattern on video. So one of the first things that we saw with Chris was his pelvis bend. This is a pelvis bend graph. So very simply, how much tilt he had in his pelvis. Now, if we look at more efficient players, we'll typically see that they have around 20 degrees of pelvis bend. It's not perfectly 20. Best players in the world probably have anywhere between 15 and 25. A lot of them, when they're pretty neutral, are close, somewhat close to 20. Chris was starting at 31. Not only was he starting at 31, but we can see the first part of that graph as it goes back is going uphill. That actually means as he starts his backswing, not only is he starting with his lower back in a pretty compromised position, actually as he starts his move, he's getting more arched. And you're going to see what that leads to in just a moment. So this was something we really worked on in time to really get this posture more neutral addressed, and it's done some really great things to his ball speed, which is not what we were after, but it's really done a lot to get more center face contact and better sequencing. So that was number 1, is we wanted to get that pelvis more neutral. We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to build this biofeedback program, but that's really the first thing that we did. Number 2, this is not necessarily the order I go in. This is just the order I went in to build the program. So I'm also doing the same flow from an assessment side. So number 2, let's take a look here at the kinematic sequence graph. I'm sure a lot of you that are on are familiar with this or very familiar with this. Just a quick summary. We're looking here at rotational velocities, how fast the body's rotating, address top, and impact. So we've got positive velocities on the left. These are our downswing. Negative velocities are backswing. And we're looking at the red, the pelvis, the green, the trunk, and the brown is the golf club, or lead hand in our system. So A lot of times we look at this data, and those of you that have looked at this, you might look at this and say, hey, pretty good sequence here, all right? But if we notice, everything's definitely a little bit closer to impact. I would call this late timing of the pelvis and the trunk. And a lot of players, not that you can't have late timing and learn how to square up the club face, but a lot of players that have late timing have problems with accuracy, especially with the pelvis. And definitely there's some power left in the tank there. But this wasn't really the root of the problem that we saw. Now we can back up here. We've got some transition sequence issues. The pelvis changed direction first, then the golf club, then the upper body. So we've got pelvis first, but then we've got golf club. And this is definitely indicative of the next move you're going to see after this. But I still didn't think that was the main problem. If we back up here and we take a look at takeaway sequence, this is really when Chris first came in, you could almost see there was some issues with his hand path in the backswing. And this was a major cause. This was definitely something that caught my eye, and that was, if we look at the backswing, remember negative velocity is the more it's going down, the faster it's rotating. So very simple here, if the red line is below the green line, we basically have a backswing where the pelvis is rotating prior to the trunk. Now, if we see some of the better players in the world, the best, and there is no perfectly efficient, everybody's different, we can definitely see some riding patterns where both the segments rotate together, or we'll see some players have an earlier stretch, but we don't see a whole lot of players where the first move is the pelvis, where they lose the ground force, because the problem is that creates a really late stretch. If we look at his stretch here, his stretch is happening at about frame 85. By the time the upper body finally gets away from the pelvis, that's pretty late. Best players in the world, we're seeing a little bit more between frame 35 and frame 50. So it was taking a long time. His pelvis went, his hand path followed inside, and then it took a while for his trunk to follow. So one of the things that we want to look at here is how we can just come over, and we're going to add a third one to this, and I'm going to show you this in live mode, how we can simply go over, load a couple drills, and I'm going to show you the third one that he got into really doing this right in live mode. So this is the K-Player software, and this is really what we want to focus on tonight. Once again, we just looked at a couple things there, but once again, you may do your assessment totally differently, do it on video, it doesn't matter. In the K-Player software now, all you have to do is click Start Training, and there's 144 activities in the software that you can now choose from. So very simple, we can load this drill, bend at address. That's going to focus on the pelvis. And then we've got a great drill in here called takeaway sequence. So I'm just literally going to go to the filter. I'm going to type takeaway sequence. And then I'm going to load the third drill here. And I'm going to show you that in live mode. And that's going to be bend at the top. And I'll let Chris speak about these as well. So once this program is now built, all we have to do is simply click launch. And now we're literally live in the software. Have Chris come on in. Chris, everyone, Chris. And now we can talk about how do we actually customize these programs for a player. So I think one of the things you've really got to be careful of when you're loading biofeedback drills is making sure you don't just load the standard ranges that come with it. You want to be able to customize it for your player. Not every player is going to be in the exact same posture. They don't have the same flexibility or mobility. And a lot of times they're trying to hit different golf shots. So there's no way these averages can work for every player. This is where the coaching comes in. We just want to make the software simple enough so you could use this. So very simply, I'm going to have Chris go ahead and set up. And the first thing that we did, I'm going to take the shoulders off the screen right here. We're going to take this sideways. So Chris used to get into this S posture that we saw. And you'll see right now he's right around 35 degrees. That's very close to where he was when he first came in. So the thing about S posture, if I try and leverage test him right now, he's actually pretty darn stable. I'm having a hard time pushing it over. The problem is locking up his upper back. He's going to have a hard time rotating, which is one of the big reasons we saw a late takeaway sequence. This leads to that early part of the backswing. So what I like to do is I'll get the player to set up, get him neutral, a little more knee flex here, get solid in the ground, Good. Get him to where he feels strong. Core feel engaged there. Good. And you'll see, all I'm trying to do is get this neutral, back neutral. Now notice if he pulls his belt underneath him too much, pull it underneath you, and now you'll notice that number's 14. Well, how do I know it's too much? Because I can easily push him over. He doesn't have any leverage in the ground. So one of the great ways you can customize pelvis bend for your players is one, when they're arched, you're going to feel it in the low back, and the core's not braced. When they get too little pelvis bend, they're going to lose ground force. So if you're using a pressure system or a force system, you're going to see the interaction with his pelvis and how it interacts with the ground. All right, so now let's get set back up. I'm going to get him nice and neutral here. I'm going to leverage test him. Good. And get where I really feel like this bend with the upper back. Good. Nice and strong. And then what I do here is I set live. Okay, we're going to stand up. So now that range is customized, even though it's pretty close to where we started, it's customized for him. Now the one thing to notice here is this is a pretty big range, 13 to 29 degrees. That means we can go back to that pelvis underneath or ground force, and we can also go really back to the lower arched position and still get the music. So here's the problem. If I'm going to leave him here training by himself and I don't tighten up these ranges, he could literally come back and say, hey coach, I've been really working on our posture, how's it looking? And I'm right back into this old backswing move because we didn't nail the foundation. So I want to make sure I tighten up the tolerance here. And I'm going to bring this down, let's just say 19 to 23. So that's giving him plus or minus 2 degrees. All right, very, very simple. So it's a much tighter ring. Go ahead and I'll make sure you get back in one more time. Okay. Good. And a lot of times, we're not training yet. I'm just making sure he has a good feeling of where it is. And once again, if you're looking at the camera right now and you're saying, hey, that's not where I put that player for posture, perfect. That's why you have that set guide live button, and you can absolutely put it anywhere you want it, and you can also change it based on the golf club that they're using. So it's a driver setup or a flip wedge setup. You're obviously going to have some different postures, and you can totally change it based on the club. All right? So the next drill that we did was takeaway sequence. And why don't we start this one without a golf club here? All right? So we're just going to start good posture, neutral pelvis, arms across the chest. And remember, that early move that Chris had before that we saw was really that pelvis rotating too early. And you'll see he's already really lost the stability in that trail foot. So this move is just to get a little bit of separation between his trunk and his pelvis. So he's just going to rotate slowly back. Good. And all this is called is the 20-40 drill. And I'm just giving him some feedback. Go ahead, a couple more. Go ahead. Good. A couple more. And I'm just giving him feedback. Good. One more balls your feet. Good. A couple more. Good. It's just a different feel. And in a way, it's over-exaggerated, just trying to get him to separate, use his core, right? That's what we talked about a lot. Using the core to get an earlier separation. All right? I'm not going to change the ranges here. I would turn the numbers off the screen. He doesn't need to see those. And we're just going to simply keep those ranges exactly where they were. Now the last one we saw, and I wanted to show this one to you in live mode, this is upper body bend. And this is upper body bend at the top of the backswing. And I'm actually going to have Chris face you right here. All right, we'll go ahead and get into golf posture there. Good. And let's go ahead and give you a golf club here and just have you swing back to the top. One of the things that we would see with Chris at the top of his backswing, can you feel it for me? He'd really get,
lift up too.
Yeah, and he'd lift up too, as he just said. He'd really lose his posture, and that upper back would really go towards the target. So if we consider that when we're looking at upper body bend very simply is where this golf club is in relation to the horizon. This is 0. When you get into good posture, you're going to be somewhere around 40 degrees. As you rotate into your backswing, as long as this golf club stays below the horizon, it's going to be a positive number. Chris was actually getting to where this would be a negative number, but a lot of that was stemming from that pelvis position in the initial part, which led to too much pelvis side bend, which got his trunk to go back towards the target. So these were all things that we said he wanted to have more center face contact, but the orientations his body was getting, it was really making it tough to get that club back to impact. So we're gonna start this program over here. It just ran through the cycle. We'll just click on bend the top again, and we'll go ahead and do a couple drills there. All the way back to the top. Good posture. I'm going to get them nice and loaded. And just once again, I'm just going to be a coach here, not saying this is perfect. Back to the top, all the way to the top. Good. I just want to get him where he feels nice and loaded, where he feels strong. And let's just say this is the position here where he feels strong. Nice set live. Go ahead and relax. That's our drill. So just remember, you're the coach. You determine the orientations based on your teaching style and also what the player can physically do and what shot they're trying to hit. Are they trying to hit a high draw or a low cut? Right? There's not one perfect position for all this, and that's one of the big things about this webinar is once you can really build a program for your player that you feel comfortable with because it's totally customized for him, it also gives him a lot of confidence that this isn't just some stock program that all the rest of the players are doing. It's literally built for what we're doing. I totally feel it. All right? So here's one of the great things now. This is what's brand new in the software. Now we can click Save. All right? All the changes that we just made, I can call this program Training. I can click Client Program. If I save it as Global, it'll be for all my clients. If I save it as Client, it'll be just for Chris. So now I click Save. So what's nice now is I go Home. I go to Start Training. I go to Programs. I go to my client programs, and there's all the programs that we can set up for Chris. You can do it by week, and a lot of times he'll come back in and we'll say, you know, hey, let's add a drill. Let's tighten up a tolerance. This week I was struggling with this. Can you measure me again? We might take something out of his program. So we're constantly revising it, but it makes it really nice. So now all I have to do is I can click Export, and I can literally go right to my client programs. A lot of you may be seeing this for the first time. I can go right to the program that we just built called Training, and I can export it. And it's basically going to say, where do I want to save it? And I just save it to a folder. So a lot of times in my studio, I'll just save it into like Dropbox, or I'll save it into the cloud, and that's what we'll do right now. We're going to go load it up on another tablet. Give us just a second, and I'm going to show you my other area here that we can actually now get Chris over here, and he can be doing the program we just built directly on his own. So give us one moment here. Let's head over to the other station, and we'll show you how this works. So we've now loaded this on a Surface tablet, and we're ready to load the program here. So I'm going to bring this camera over, and I'm actually going to show you exactly how it works. So we've got this set up on a kiosk here. All he does is click Training. You can see his 3 drills are loaded up on the program there. I've got it literally right in front of him on a nice kiosk that he can stay in posture. We'll click the top right button to launch. Yep. And we're training. So literally 2 clicks, we're in there. He's got his program loaded. And literally what was nice about this little area is you don't have to have a huge setup to do this type of training. You can really just have a small setup. The player can walk in and out, and this can be really, really simple. So this little area right here is actually a 9 by 15 area, 15 feet wide, 9 feet deep, just enough room to swing a golf club. And now what we'll do is we'll have players come in here, we'll measure and assess them over in the bay with a foot pressure and a launch monitor and 3D and 60, all that. But once the program's built, we literally come over here and we let them train. So we just make it really, really simple. So you can kind of see Chris is going to go through a progression of drills here. And what's nice if he wants to walk over to the keyboard, he can choose a different drill. You can pick whatever one you want. I like it because I'm kind of quiet over here. People are watching me. And you kind of, I'm not a scratch golfer, so for me, being have a little privacy and really work on my stuff is important. Yeah. So the great thing is he can just make his little motions. So we're on the 20-40 drill right now. There's a little small backswing to get some separation, and it's just a small little move. So it's very simple. We can even start without a golf club, just hands across the chest, just a little move, and that's it. So when we get in the right tone, very, very simple for him to get that feedback. So what's great is we can load up all his drills, and I would recommend if you're going to be training a player like this, just have a small little kiosk set up. We're using a small little tablet. You can use a Surface tablet. There's great Dells out now that are really inexpensive. And you can just simply load the program, send it over, let him train. And a lot of times we'll even build like little warm-up programs that he can come in and do before his round. Just literally, I'm not a TPI certified professional from the fitness side, but just things to get his body warmed up before a round, take advantage of some of the fitness activities that are also launched in the software.
I like this. I'll remember that feeling in my core when I go to hit my shots. I'm not thinking, you know what, everybody says do this, do that, but I just get this one feeling, and I know I'm in the right position, heading for a good shot.
Yeah. And the nice thing is Chris has put in the time, so he's really seen a difference in what's happened. And it's been nice to see that pattern change. And really, once we went into the data and said, hey, here's a couple of things that we can work on, they're not complicated. And I think that's the thing that we try and do is, a lot of times as coaches, we just want to make these programs as simple as possible, and we don't want somebody to leave a golf lesson going, hey, I've got to think about 5 things. My whole thing is just how do we get them moving? Like, let's just get them moving. I've actually got my certified trainer here, Scott. We go to the gym every morning, and it's just, how do you move better? Well, you just move better, right? And he's constantly giving me cues, and it's no different than Chris going, hey, I want to swing better. And it's like, well, we just got to give you feedback so you don't have those poor reps anymore, and you're not chasing things on the driving range, where that one worked, that one didn't, and all of a sudden you're chasing ball flight and you're back to your old patterns. I can tell you when he leaves here, just from the conversations we've had, right after the training, we've had a pretty good experience with ball flight.
Excellent.
Anything else you want to add?
It's amazing that how much you need to engage your core. It's amazing how much posture matters. It's amazing how much tilt matters, ground matters. And if you don't have something like this, somebody can tell you all day, be like this. Well, when the machine gives you the beat, you go, wow, really? I thought it was in a great position. You really have no idea. And you can ask your friends, and you're like, yeah, whatever. This year, you get the feedback, practice it, you go out there. And I don't do everything perfect, but the more I do right, the more I take away from this, the better my results are. I'm just trying to be the best golfer I can with the right tools in place.
Yeah. And it's just fun. It's fun to watch. I think it's fun to watch the biofeedback on a player like Chris because once you build it, I think we've all dealt with a player where we prescribe something, they come back in the next session and we're working on the exact same thing again. And almost whether your rate's $100 an hour or it's $200 an hour, it just takes a while for that to become a new pattern in the brain. And that pattern's got to get strengthened. We talk about this a lot, like, hey, I'm getting back to my old pattern. Well, there's something that's triggering that. And the more reps we do the right way, the other pattern's not going away. The new pattern's just getting stronger. The new pattern's just getting stronger. And that's why, when I see, we'll get into these group coaching sessions here in just a couple minutes, you see these group coaching sessions, when the coach is standing there, it's great. But when the coach walks away and he's working with Johnny Smith, 4th person down, and player number 1 starts going back to their old pattern again, we live in a time now where that doesn't have to happen. You can walk away for 45 minutes and have the confidence that player number 1 is doing just as well as player number 4, and then being able to build a business around that's really exciting.